50-year-old Gregory Vicente Green was born on December 10, 1966, to his parents Tommy Lee and Woodrow Green. Limited information is available on him, but it seems he had an average childhood with both parents and siblings. However, when he approached his early 20s, he met the love of his life through a mutual friend, Tonya Clayton. Tonya had 2 young children from a previous relationship, but her and Gregory eventually married in 1989. Tonya was described as fun, loving, kind, and big-hearted. Though the two shared a relatively rocky marriage, Tonya was 6 months pregnant with her third and Gregory's first child. They were excited to create a family together, but it was around the 2nd year of the marriage when she noticed a switch in his demeanor. One day, Tonya called her friend and said Gregory started acting differently and she was unsure if he was on drugs. She told her friend that she was going to leave Gregory and planned on going to church first before packing her clothes. However, this would be the last time her friend heard from Tonya again. Around 1 a.m., police showed up to the Green residence after receiving a call from Gregory. When the officers approached the door, Gregory ushered them inside and explained that he had murdered Tonya. He told them her body was in the kitchen and the weapon was in the refrigerator. The police approached Tonya, who was visibly stabbed in the face and chest. She was rushed to Grace Hospital, where she was pronounced dead, along with their unborn child. At the crime scene, Tonya's other 2 kids were horrifically present, but were unharmed. One child was found hidden in the closet. During his trial the following year, he pleaded no contest to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 15 to 20 years. Notably, Gregory showed not one sign of remorse. Tonya's relatives were devastated at such a short sentence for such a violent crime, but off to prison Gregory went. When asked about his crimes, Gregory was still unable to give any insight as to where his temper and violence came from that led to Tonya's vicious murder. The parole board noted him as someone who lacked remorse and blamed his victims for his actions. Thus, the parole board denied his application 4 times. But Gregory managed to complete a number of educational and psychological programs. He appeared to be well-behaved with a nearly perfect behavioral record. He followed the rules and stayed out of trouble. He was respectful to staff and other prisoners. In 2002, he received his only ticket for fist-fighting another prisoner over a television. Surprisingly, Gregory had people in his corner. His family relentlessly sent letters of support every parole hearing. Additionally, the board received a letter from Pastor Fred Harris, a charismatic pastor and civil rights activist in the Detroit community. He penned at least 2 persuasive letters of support for Gregory's release, as he used to be a member of his church. Fred wrote in 2005, "Gregory and I were friends before his mishap, and he was incarcerated. I feel he has paid for his unfortunate lack of self-control and the damage he has caused as much as possible, and is sorry. This will not restore the lives that were taken. He will carry that with him for the rest of his life." The following year, Fred wrote again, "I've noticed a great deal of growth, and his understanding has matured quite a bit, as well as his processing skills. If he was to be released, he would be welcomed as a part of our church community, and whatever we could do to help him adjust, we would." Gregory also told others that he had plans to work once released. His parents and sister wrote letters that claimed he was remorseful, a hard worker in prison, and was allegedly turning towards his faith. Additionally, there were also no letters during all of his hearings that were opposing his release. With the belief that Gregory had a strong support system ready to receive him, was capable of reform, and finding that he finally had accepted what he's done, the parole board released him in 2008 on his 5th attempt. He had only served 16 years of his sentence and would have been released in 2012 if not accepted. Soon enough, Gregory returned to society and began working and attending church again, where he'd eventually meet a new lady, Faith Harris. Faith was the daughter of Pastor Fred Harris and knew of Gregory since she was 14 years old, as her earliest memories recall seeing him at her dad's church. As a young girl, she always had a crush on him, even though he was 10 years older at the time. But she remembered that at some point, he stopped attending and disappeared, and later heard that he was incarcerated. Meanwhile, she married a man named Chadney Allen Sr. and gave birth to 2 children, her son Chadney Allen Jr. in 1997 and daughter Kara Allen in 2000. The marriage ended in divorce and she went on with her life. However, in 2008, she noticed a familiar face at her dad's church one day. Instantly, she recognized Gregory and got butterflies. This time, she was 32 years old. She approached Gregory, who almost didn't recognize her. But after that initial conversation at church, they continued to connect with each other, and things progressed. Her father integrated Gregory into the church as promised and was not opposed to him and Faith building a relationship. In fact, Faith didn't ask her father about Gregory's background. It was generally believed in the community that he was incarcerated for self-defense, and Gregory affirmed that whenever Faith tried to pry for more details. He told her that he argued with his ex-wife, and she fell and hit her head and tragically passed away. Pairing the story with his calm personality at the time, Faith believed it to be true. However, the mask could not stay on forever. While they dated, Faith's daughter Kara did not take a liking to Gregory. She wrote in her diary, "I don't like Greg. Mom's obsessed with him. Something doesn't seem right about Greg, and they're talking about getting married. I don't want to call him dad. It's like everyone loves him but me." After 2 years, Gregory was released from parole. He worked at Detroit's airport and continued his relationship with Faith. She then gave birth to their first daughter together in October, Coy Green. The couple then got married on December 18th, 2010. Soon after, Faith noticed his demeanor switch once the child was involved. Initially, he was happy, but then he became emotionally distant. 2 years later, she gave birth to another daughter, Kaylee Green. This time, he was even more detached with the kids, which confused Faith because he wanted children prior. After inquiring, he mentioned to Faith that he was upset because he wanted a boy. He was moody, they began getting in many pointless arguments, and he would quite literally only ever pay the bills. Soon enough, Faith and the kids started to notice his short temper and anger issues. His 2 children slowly grew fear around him and showed subtle signs of anxiety, like growing a habit of biting their nails. He also favored his 2 daughters instead of integrating Faith's other 2 children. Well, he liked Chadney because he liked Gregory, but he felt Kara did not like him, so he grew to slowly despise her. In February 2013, Faith tried to obtain a personal protection order against him, but this was not granted because the authorities believed she didn't have enough evidence for the request. She wrote about an incident where Gregory was threatening that things would get ugly if she didn't leave the home. To get her out of the home, she mentioned that he was acting belligerent, jumping at her like he was about to attack her, kicking things like the couch while their baby was sleeping on it, and the ordeal went on for hours. Later that year, in October 2013, she filed for a divorce. In August 2016, she filed for a divorce again. Their relationship continued to be extremely rocky, turbulent, and eventually dangerous. Gregory continued on with random erratic episodes. One day, Faith described that she came home from work and immediately noticed the smell of gas. After walking into the home, she noticed all of the burners on the gas stove were turned on. Gregory was chilling on the couch and initially blamed it on the kids. After pressing him further, he eventually admitted that he did it because he was suicidal. Ever since that day, Faith was scared to sleep in her own home. She knew then that things could get really deadly for her kids and began plotting their exit. On this night, Gregory woke Faith from her sleep and forced her in the living room. In the living room, she saw her 19-year-old son Chadney by the table, and Gregory instructed him to put the zip ties on the table onto Faith to tie her up. Immediately, he tried de-escalating the situation, but Gregory was not having it and pulled out a gun to instruct him one more time. Chadney then put the zip ties on Faith, and Gregory put zip ties on Chadney as well. To her horror, Kara walked in, and Gregory put zip ties on her before leading them all to the basement. Meanwhile, Faith remained calm and composed because she feared for the kids. Gregory laid them on the ground and then disappeared for a few moments. In that window, Faith began plotting an escape from the zip ties with Chadney. But before they could finish, Gregory came back and turned the basement lights off. He began talking to Faith and told her that he didn't want his girls to be raised by anyone in her family or influenced by Kara, and that he wanted her to suffer for that. Soon after, he shot Kara twice. Tragically, she said "Mom" before she passed away. Gregory then shot Chadney, and he said "Ow" before he stopped moving. He then raised the gun to Faith and shot her in the foot. Afterwards, he came towards her, held her face, and slashed it with a box cutter. He then called 911 around 1 a.m. and told the operator everything he did. The police came to the residence and immediately detained Gregory while rushing Faith to the hospital. Sadly, they found the lifeless bodies of Kara and Chadney. Upstairs, they discovered the two baby girls in their beds who appeared to be asleep. But when authorities tried to recover them, they noticed neither of the girls had a pulse. When Faith woke up in the ICU, officers had to explain to her that her two youngest girls had also been killed by Gregory. After speaking with Gregory, he admitted to carrying the girls, 4-year-old Kaylee and 5-year-old Coy, while they slept and putting them in the family car. He connected a hose from the car's exhaust pipe, put duct tape on the muffler, and left it in the car, killing them with carbon monoxide. He then carried the children back into their rooms and placed them on their beds. He also admitted that he had no intention of killing Faith and wanted her to live with what she did, just like he now has to. According to Faith, it was soon after that she learned the truth of his previous marriage with Tonya. She realized the self-defense story was a lie. Faith even confronted her father, who penned 2 letters of support, and he allegedly didn't even know himself. All he claimed to know was that he accidentally killed his wife. Interestingly enough, Faith learned around this time too of her dad's parole board letters and attested that her father never mentioned any of it to Faith, and if she had known, she would have never married him in the first place. And if her father didn't approve, she wouldn't have married him either. However, Gregory's relatives claim that Faith knew he spent time in prison for murdering Tonya. One of Faith's friends said she doesn't believe Faith knew because if she did, she would have never married him. She would have never put her kids in harm's way. Faith was finally granted a divorce 3 months after the incident in December 2016. Gregory was charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count each of assault with intent to do great bodily harm, torture, unlawful imprisonment, felonious assault as a felon in possession, and felony firearm. This time he pleaded guilty to all charges. His defense tried to file a motion for insanity, the same tactic after Tonya's murder. But this time he was found mentally competent. Throughout the trial, he gave no motive and appeared quite regretful and shocked at himself for what he did. Though it seems that he was angry with Faith for whatever weird reason and had all intentions of wanting her to suffer, even if it meant murdering his own kids. To that, Faith had a few words for him at his trial.
I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied with the outcome. There's no punishment that fits the crime. Not even torture and death would be justice. Your justice will come when you burn in hell for all eternity, for murdering 4 innocent children, all because you're insecure as a man. Plus the other 2 lives you took. You are a con artist, you are a monster, you are a devil in disguise. You are now forever exposed. I've thought over and over again what I would say, even though it doesn't even matter. First of all, I am not and did not and will not suffer like you intended for me to do. Nothing or no one, sure as hell, not you, can break me or break my bond with them. But while I stand up here trembling with fear, I put on my bravest face to be in the same room with the man who murdered all 4 of my children. 2 of them violently in front of me with a gun, Chadney and Kara.
With news of the murders, the neighbors were completely shocked. The family appeared stable and had just celebrated Kaylee's 4th birthday. Friends and classmates of Faith's 2 eldest children flooded Twitter and other social media platforms with pictures of the 2, expressing shock and grief over the tragic killings. Kara was a high school student who was a member of the student newspaper and a varsity football cheerleader. She also was a part of the National Honor Society and had dreams of becoming a medical doctor. Chadney graduated from Southfield High School just a year prior and was a talented artist with a keen interest in business. More than 1,000 people attended the funeral of the children. Gregory was found guilty of all charges and sentenced to 45 to 100 years in prison in February 2017. He will be 97 by the time he's eligible for parole again. According to Faith's doctor, she now suffers from PTSD and short-term memory loss, along with migraines and nightmares. She said, "Some days I wish I had died. There's a hole in my heart and soul that can never be repaired. This wound will never heal." She doesn't connect with her father and really doesn't know how to feel about him. She can tell the situation bothers him, as she knows she struggles to talk to him about this, and he still can't quite tell her how he feels. Though she still struggles with grief, Faith is doing better these days, but is still trying to figure out life after the tragedy. She told an article, "I don't know what the words are to say. I've been better in the last couple of years, I will say, as far as coping and trying to live daily. Not an easy thing, but I do feel like I'm in a much better place than I was 5 years ago. I'm finally able to somewhat work now, which is a good thing. I still just try to stay positive and be as happy as much as I can be." Faith no longer can work regular jobs because she experiences moments of heavy grieving, which makes it hard for jobs to want to employ her full time. Instead, she has created several businesses to honor her children. For her eldest son, Chadney, she created Chadware to honor his artwork. She also created a lip gloss and hand sanitizer brand in honor of her youngest daughters, Coy and Kaylee. For her eldest daughter, Kara, she was able to accept her high school diploma posthumously from Southfield High School, where a scholarship was also created in Kara's honor. Gregory's mother died several years prior to this incident. I wonder what she would have thought of the monster son she once had high hopes for. May all 4 of Faith's children rest in paradise. And thank you all for watching.